I told you that you searching for happiness is the exact reason why you feel unhappy? Have you ever watched a movie that no matter how you feel in that moment, it makes you feel so immersed in it that your feelings actually change? You cry with the movie, you get angry when they get angry, and when they feel joy, you just can't help but to light up with a smile and feel that joy so much so that you get goosebumps. It's no wonder why people love watching movies. You get to feel so many emotions in such a short time that by the end, you really appreciate the happy ending. When you sit down and actually analyze movies, you start to realize that there's a pattern to it. There's always a baseline, a spark, a dip, and then a high point. The best movie I can think of that relates to this video, since we're talking about happiness, is The Pursuit of Happiness.
I am not happy anymore. I'm just not happy.
Then go get happy, Linda. Just go get happy.
In that movie, the baseline is a family just trying to make ends meet. As the story goes on, he encounters a spark. He sees this stockbroker in a fancy car and he just feels ignited to change. He wanted to be able to offer his family something different financially. And here comes the third part of the typical pattern of a movie, and that's the dip. And in that movie, the dip it's a dip. And you can see that he encounters financial distress. He's not able to sell, oh my gosh, did I say spoiler alert? Spoiler alert. He's not able to sell this piece of equipment that he really invested a lot of money in, that he thought would have been the way to financial freedom. Not only that, but his wife ends up leaving him and his 5-year-old son. No money, wife left, ended up getting evicted, so now they're homeless. And through all this, he's still going through this 6-month internship that does not pay anything. And the cherry on top is the IRS ended up taking the little bit of money he had left, and he ended up going to jail. And that visit to jail almost jeopardized his opportunity for his interview. But then after that dip came the peak. After all of this, he ended up getting the job, and you see in the movie, he's just the happiest person on the planet. You feel so happy for him, especially after encountering all the difficulties that he faced. And then the movie ends. That happiness that you felt throughout the movie quickly dissipates when you go back to reality and you realize that movies aren't really like real life, because while a movie ends on a high note, life doesn't stay that way. And if you're anything like me who had a tough childhood and you went through all the challenges through life and you worked your butt off in hopes that you'll get to that peak and you'll have that same type of story, and here you are and you could have that success, but you're wondering why life doesn't stay at the peak. It can be very frustrating, and you can go through years just wondering, am I depressed, or why am I not happy? It's a very crippling feeling, because you were basically promised that if you worked so hard, that if you continue to work hard, that you will eventually get to the end of the rainbow and have your pot of gold and everything will be perfect. For me, I graduated from high school at 16 years old, went straight to college, worked my way through college by being a cashier at Burger King. I worked a full-time and a part-time job to be able to afford college, went to dental school and graduated as a doctor at 24 years old. At that point, I was waiting for my pot of gold. I had all the boxes checked and I was ready for my happiness, but it really wasn't that easy. And for some of us, we can feel so discouraged that after achieving either financial success or getting to that point in your career that you always wanted to be, you're wondering why you just don't feel happy. I know so many successful people who honestly just want to one day wake up and say, forget all of this, and fly off to a remote island and be a beach bum for the rest of their lives. We're experiencing burnout at an alarming rate, and we've lost the identity of who we are, and we just don't feel happy. So throughout the movie, I think we can really relate to the fact that the character had some moments where his faith was starting to falter. There are moments where he would lose control, but he was always able to get himself back on track and be grounded again. He always remembered that his main priority was to take care of his son. Always went back to his core values. And while that movie ended on a high note, I think it's really important for us to realize that life continues to reset itself. Life is simply a series of baseline sparks, dips, and peaks, just like the beating drum that gives you life. I've been unhappy, depressed, and honestly embarrassed with how many years I let this concept of unhappiness take over my life. For years, I was waiting for the peaks and praying that they would just last. And things didn't change until I answered the question, what does happiness look like to me? When you sit down and truly answer that question, what does happiness look like? Not the superficial things, but what truly will bring you joy. And for me, I realized that I had it all along. This whole time, I had everything that I thought would make me happy, even through the baselines, the sparks, the dips, and the peaks. If you're a mother, you understand that we spend a lot of our time dedicated to taking care of other people, oftentimes sacrificing our own well-being. Our routines can become redundant and kind of lackluster. Even though my children are quite young, their growth seems so astronomical to me. And remembering the fact that one day, the constant calling of my name will eventually end. The annoyances of having toys on the floor or asking them to pick up their clothes will be a distant memory. That dependency they have on me that can seem sometimes so overwhelming is the very thing that one day I might miss the most. This too shall pass, and I make sure the negative thoughts don't overwhelm me, and I let the positive things uplift me. It's the small emotions that matter. We just have to spend some time to reflect on that. If you feel like your life is becoming complacent or stagnant in your growth, maybe that's just where you are. You're at baseline. We may even be closing our eyes off to the spark. So maybe you start surrounding yourself with others who may inspire you. Perhaps watch motivational content or try to develop a new way to become more creative. And hopefully, there'll be a spark for change. Remembering that the dip might come, and that might just look like you being challenged or constantly failing with a new creative endeavor that you decide to take on. Remembering that progress is not always upwards. There are dips and there are peaks. Progress is simply moving forward. Surround yourself with people or things that motivate you to grow. Similar to a flower, maybe it's time to repot your roots and allow yourself some room to grow. Happiness is everything in between. They're the things that make life so enjoyable and memorable. And just like the movie, life is a little bit slower, but it takes you through the spectrum of emotions, through the baselines and the dips, so that you can truly appreciate the sparks and the peaks. Try your best not to get caught up in the comparison trap. It's something that's easier to do nowadays more than ever with social media. Whether it's your family member, a neighbor, someone that you follow on Instagram, or even on a movie. If there's ever a time where you feel overwhelmed and lost, put your hand on your chest. Let that beat be the reminder that this too shall pass. And you can still be happy wherever you are in life once you've defined what your happiness looks like. I don't know why we're not taught emotional intelligence, and clearly it took a while for me to grasp this. But as I close the era of being in my 30s, I hope to continue on these heartbeats with my newfound mindset and appreciation for life.